I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning in a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm Daniel, and I hope everybody's had a good weekend. It's been a few days since I've been on, so I hope everybody's been safe. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You know what to do. Also, quick reminder of our partnership with DataSeal. If you have any concerns about your private information being out there, whether it's your name, address, religious preference, voting preference, those type of things, and it being on the interwebs, check out our partner with DataSeal. Link is in the description. Get a 5% discount, and this will help exhaust all of that information off the interwebs. So make sure you go and check it out. I'm doing well, Leslie and Billy. I hope you guys are doing well. Good to see you as well. And today we're going to be going into the Bryan Kohberger case. We're going to be talking about some documents that dropped. I think that there is a little consensus here of an idea of what's going on in this case. I think the picture is getting clear. I really do like what Judge Hippler has done in this case. Nothing. I try not to be too harsh on John Judge, but there was a lot of secrecy. A lot of things were sealed. It seemed like he was allowing the defense just kind of run everything and get their way in almost anything. And with Hippler, he's like, you know what, enough's enough. There's a lot of conspiracy. Maybe perhaps he sees what's going on in the Karen Reed case. I don't know, but he's like, we're going to make things a little bit more transparent. We're going to make sure that everybody sees what's going on. That way, these statements that maybe perhaps the defense are making that aren't completely whole truths, you can kind of make your mind when you see what it is that they're referring to. Kind of like when they said, for instance, he's an innocent man, and then, Ann Taylor changed it to an innocent man right now, which is the case. He definitely is. But without further ado, let's break it down. Let's get into it. The first document that we're looking into here, this is going to be the case summary. A couple of things that I noticed in the case summary that I wanted to highlight really fast. I noticed that there is a notice of appearance, and it just says Alan. Unsure what that's going to be about. Who's Alan? I assume this is going to be some sort of expert, possibly. Yeah, maybe. And then there's a lot of different stuff in here, but just a couple things I saw. The other thing is I saw this one's locked, so this one's sealed. It's the state's response to the defendant's motion to adopt voir dire procedure and objection to magic question. I wonder what the magic question is. That's in quotations. I'm not entirely sure. You guys let me know if you guys have any idea what the magic question could be. Maybe perhaps time frame. I don't know. A lot of sealed stuff. And then I noticed this one here that's sealed. This one is subject document, motion to redact or seal newly filed record, sealed states exhibit S-22B. Then it just says seat. Now, I don't know if that's somebody's last name is seat or if this is a seat that you would sit on. Now, I'm curious if this is a seat that you sit on, what it is that you might that might be entered in here. I'm interested. But I went through majority of these sealed documents here, and there's it says Miller, Nord, Worthall, Martinez, rebuttal Ayers, rebuttal Hill, rebuttal Gilbertson, state supplement exhibits for rebuttal expert disclosures. So I'm assuming these are some sort of, witness or expert, but it says seat. So I don't know if that maybe perhaps is it could be an actual seat. If they found something, maybe a speck of DNA somewhere on a chair. Maybe it's his car seat or a seat in his vehicle. I'm not sure. Let's see. All right. So let's break this down. Let's go into this one step at a time. And like I said, there's not a lot in the new docs, but there's a few documents and we'll go over them. Let's see. This one's the state's reply to the defendant's objection to the state's notice of intent to use IRE 4404B evidence. Now comes the state of Idaho and submits the following reply to the March 17th defendant's objection to the state's notice of intent. The state has given notice of its intent to present evidence of an August 21st, 2022 contact between Latah County Sheriff Deputy Darren Duke and the defendant. Deputy Duke conducting a traffic stop on a vehicle that was exceeding the posted speed limit. The driver of the vehicle was the defendant, Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger providing the following information to Deputy Duke: his name, date of birth, his address, which is his apartment address there in Pullman, Washington, and his telephone number. Deputy Duke also identified the defendant's Hyundai Elantra and license and registration. Although Mr. Kohberger was stopped for exceeding the posted speed limit, Deputy Duke elected to only issue the infraction citation for failing to use his seatbelt. The purpose of the state offering this evidence is to prove Mr. Kohberger's admission and acknowledgement of his identity, address, phone number, and his vehicle. So basically what this is saying is that we're going to utilize this specific stop only to identify the vehicle and that he had possession, control, and ownership of the vehicle at the time, and the condition of the vehicle at the time, which is that it was registered to Washington, which means that it didn't have a front license plate. This is also going to give them leeway into searching for his phone number amongst the phones that are in that geofencing, right? Where they try to say, all right, between 3 and 5 o'clock, we want to get a X amount radius of the victim's home and see how many phones connected to a network during that time. And we find out during these documents that his phone is actually turned off during that time. And so since it wasn't in there, you have to get his number somehow, right? And so this is a public way or a documentation way that the law enforcement or probable cause, put it this way, for them to have his phone number is through this traffic stop. So they're just utilizing this as probable cause to have his phone number to compare it to the list of other numbers. Also to run his vehicle information, etc., because of how closely it matched the vehicle that was seen on the camera. 1122 King Road or 1112 King Road. My apologies. So that's all this document is going to be. But we find out what it is for. He's getting pulled over for speeding. And during that traffic stop, the officer discovers that he did not have his seatbelt. So he got a citation for the seatbelt, not for the speeding. It's an interesting place where he was pulled over, which was right there at the Winco Foods, right where I believe it was the location that Kaylee had mentioned that she had an incident with a young man or Kaylee and Bethany actually had a situation with a young man that she contacted her mom about because she was concerned and scared about. This is the quote unquote stalking incident, but there was actually two men in the store, and these guys were trying to pick up. They were trying to pick up girls. Long story short, they're trying to get somebody's number, and they do not meet anything as far as the description of what Dylan said she saw the person inside of the house. They do not match the height, weight, race, or any of those type of things. Everything is completely off. And so that's one of the things that we mentioned, like when it comes to Dylan, it's not so much that she's pointing out towards Bryan Kohberger per se, but she does not exclude Bryan Kohberger based on her description of what she saw and who she saw. And like I said, the guys that were quote unquote stalking or following Bethany and Kaylee in the Winco, they don't even match that vague description. They would have been not necessarily cleared based off of that, given the fact that Dylan was intoxicated and etc. But based on several other things, probably that they do actually have, in fact, an alibi, unlike Mr. Kohberger. And so it's for a traffic stop for speeding, and he got a citation for not having his seatbelt. I wonder if he was arguing in this traffic stop. I can't wait to see it. I look forward to seeing what his activity was, his demeanor. This is I believe a traffic stop that occurred at night, so we'll see how it works. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one is the state's reply to the defendant's objection to the state's motion to eliminate alternative perpetrator evidence. Comes down to the state of Idaho. And the Latah County prosecuting attorney submits the following reply to the defendant's objection to the state's motion to eliminate alternative perpetrator evidence. Although the defendant purports to object to the state's motion and ask the court to deny the same, in truth, the defendant appears to substantively concur with the legal standards articulated with the state in the supported of its instant motion. The defendant acknowledges that he must make a satisfactory offer of proof prior to an offering of an argument of an alternative perpetrator theory. Consequently, the court should grant the state's motion and enter an order prohibiting the defendant from offering an alternative perpetrator evidence or argument without first satisfying the court of such evidence and irrelevant and admissible under IRE 401. And so basically what they're saying is that Bryan Kohberger tricked himself, him and his lawyer. And this isn't the only motion that we're going to see where they trick themselves, where they actually agree with the state, and the state's saying, hey, we agree back. And so we'll see if they come up with some sort of evidence outside of some potential DNA on a handrail that is unknown, right? We already know that the defense is trying to get the DNA that's in Maddie Mogen's fingernails out. Now, why are they trying to do that? They're claiming it's exculpatory, which makes no sense if it's exculpatory that they would want it thrown out. However, they want that DNA thrown out. They don't want the DNA off of the handrail thrown out. So we can kind of start to connect the dots as to what they're going to try to say. And I think they're going to try to say that the real person that committed this crime went down the first floor and had some sort of injury, which is why there was some sort of blood mark on the first floor handrail. And it wasn't even, we don't even know how much of blood it was. I mean, from what I understand, it probably was just a speck of blood, just a very small amount, which could have been there for God knows how long. There was a party the night before. I mean, we've said this countless of times. Go look at the pictures. You can see inside of the house and you can see the reminiscence of a party. There's, beer pong table, spread solo cups, beer bottles, beer cans, et cetera, food everywhere. And we know that based on neighbors' reports from the area that night, that it was it was very quiet. So we know that there wasn't a party that night. That was from the night before. And so if there's such a mess there with all the reminiscence of that party, one would assume there's probably a lot of DNA that's going back and forth in that house, which is could be a reason why that house may have been selected, knowing that there's so many people that go in and out that it could potentially mask DNA left behind, if any was. So it seems like, and I hope that they don't, that the prosecution is going to end up winning this, and that they don't go in the in favor of the defense here. But they don't have. I mean, even if they say, "All right, go ahead and report your alternative theory," who are they going to point at? I mean, the only persons we can choose are, or that we know of. Let me put it this way: is well, we know that there's supposedly an incident that occurred at Sigma Chi. I don't know how true that is. That could have been completely made up and just put on Reddit and people ran with it. I have not been able to confirm it at all from anybody, from a lot of people that I've spoken to from the area. I have not been able to confirm that there was an incident at Sigma Chi, but I could be wrong. I don't know at all. Or I don't know for sure, but I have not been able to confirm it at all. If you're from the area and you've are able to confirm that something did happen, reach out to me. The email is in the description, drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. Well, anywho, there's supposedly whatever may have happened at Sigma Chi. Then you have Jack Core, which I think is probably the most easiest target to go after, I would say, because he's an ex-boyfriend. He was with Maddie and Kaylee the night of the incident at the Corner Club. They were freshly out of a relationship. She had been dating and seeing other people. He didn't live too far away. The dog, we already know that the defense is mentioning that maybe perhaps somebody took the dog out and brought the dog in, Murphy, that is. So I think that they're going to try to push that perhaps Jack Core may have been another suspect in this case. And, I think they're going to try to say that if anybody were to say, well, he didn't have any blood evidence at the scene. Well, there wasn't any for Bryan Kohberger either. There was no DNA of the victims, like blood DNA, and if they were to have searched his place or his vehicle and those type of things, and they didn't find any, and that may have been an argument for Jack. Well, Ann Taylor's going to come back and say, well, the same can be said for Bryan Kohberger to a certain extent. Like I said, they want the DNA that's under Madison Mogen's hand or fingernails out for a reason. They claim they can exclude it. The state says otherwise. The state is making it seem like, no, in fact, they believe that it is inconclusive because there is more of a chance that it is his than it is not. And so there isn't an agreement there. The state did not concede that was not Bryan Kohberger's. They have their own experts that potentially have a different opinion. So I'm excited to see what they say there. I feel that if just the mere fact that the defense is trying to get that thrown out is probably a indication that it more likely is going to end up being something that looks pretty suspicious for Bryan Kohberger. But, all that to say, they're probably going to go after Jack. He lived close by, so even if his phone was on during the time, I mean, he's down the block. So, I know he didn't do it. I know that the Goncalves family know he didn't do it. They searched him. They searched his body to see if he had any scratches or any of those type of things, and he didn't. They trust him. I strongly believe he didn't do anything. And so my prayers are with him. I know this is going to be a tough moment for him, because when he does get called to the stand, or he does when he does go through cross examination, they're probably going to hit at him pretty hard. And I mean, he lost somebody that was so close to him, and they're going to try to blame him. And I can't imagine how hard that's probably going to be. So I really do hope for all the strength for him. He's a tough guy, and I'm sure he'll be able to handle it. But prayers to him and his family. I'm sure they're going to need it. everybody in this needs it. You know what I mean? All the family members and everybody that's has somebody or a loved one who is affected by this, whether it be a surviving roommate or one whose life was taken at the hands allegedly of Bryan Kohberger's. So leave that for what that is. Okay, so let's see. So this is one of the reasons or one of the times that Ann Taylor and Bryan Kohberger tricked themselves. All right, so now this one's where it starts to get a little bit better, right? I mentioned this to you guys a few times. I've said this actually a while ago, that Bryan Kohberger had a family member talk. I strongly suspect Bryan Kohberger's family member spoke, around the time that he got arrested. I don't think his family member spoke, and this is just all my opinion, but I don't think that his family member spoke like immediately after the murders. I think that, JLR, shout out to JLR. He reported earlier that, that one of his sisters who did not attend his extradition hearing, Bryan Kohberger's, that is, when he was in Pennsylvania, may have reported to the tip line that Bryan Kohberger had purchased a K-bar knife and was looking to purchase another one after the murders. According to JLR, the sister saw that there was some search activity, or perhaps even a K-bar knife in the cart or something to that nature, notified her father of what she's seeing and of her suspicion. And at that point, he had determined that that he would go down to Washington and bring Bryan Kohberger back for a trip, just to kind of talk to him and bring him back for the holidays. Not necessarily to bring him back as an escape route or anything like that, or escape plan, just to, hey, you know what? Based on, and I had interviews with Howard Bloom, and based on what he has said and reported on our show, it sounds like there was some suspicion there. And according to Howard Bloom, there is a book being written, and I have been able to confirm this with other sources, that one of the Kohberger sisters is writing a book right now, which is interesting. It can't be released apparently until after the gag order is released. So it's probably going to talk about some detailed information that was going on with Mr. Kohberger around the time that the murders happened, and firsthand experience with one of the Kohberger sisters during that break. I've been saying that one of them talked, and there's been now some documents that have been dropping that kind of allude to, and this is one of them. This is the state's reply to the defendant's response to objection to motion in limine, immediate family members in the courtroom. The defendant requests that members of his family be granted the same rights as the victims' families. However, the immediate families of a homicide victim have constitutional statutory rights to attend pursuant to Idaho Constitution. There is no comparable constitutional or statutory provisions affording the defendant's family the same rights. The defendant has a constitution and a statutory right to a public trial, but that does not extend to the defendant's choosing whom sits in the courtroom, which I think is something that they've been trying to do. I mean, this whole move to Boise, which I think is a blessing in disguise, especially when we find out that we got Judge Hippler now. I honestly thought that this was a move to try to get away from the victims' family members and make it harder for them to attend the trial, because a jury seeing victims' family members' responses is powerful. And it can be something I think that a defendant would not want in the courtroom. And up to this point, I think that he has done a lot, and this is my opinion, that he's done a lot to try to make that happen. But the victim family members are diligent, and they're not going to let this guy win, and so they're going to be there at every trial day there is. All right, so this goes on to say, in addition, the state may call on members and this is a S in parentheses or in quotations or whatever you want to call them. Parentheses, I was right. Of the Kohberger family to testify at trial. So this is at least one or more of the Kohberger members to testify at trial. So we do know that Michael Kohberger, Bryan Kohberger's father, had gone on a trip with him. I'm sure there's a lot of things that the state is going to want to ask him about that trip and maybe some of the things that he may have noticed. We also know that there was the purchase of a K-bar knife between March 20th and March 30th. We know that there was a warrant for that specific time, and I have the warrant. I mean, not the warrant, but I have the document here. This is the state's response to the defendant's motion in limine, excluding the Amazon click activity evidence at trial. And here it says that the search warrant directed law enforcement to seize from Amazon Bryan Kohberger's customer click activity pertaining to knives and accessories, payment methods and details, and items in carts to include all items added to the cart and items removed or deleted from the cart, wished items or wished baskets, shopping baskets. All records regarding reviews by other Amazon users. The search warrant was limited to March 20th, 2022 through March 30th, 2022 and November 1st, 2022 through December 6th. The search warrant was served on May 10th. Let's see. The evidence was provided to the defendant via AV00388 on July 12, 2023. And at the very, very bottom, it states here, the defendant touches on any issue identifying the account user making the Amazon search warrant inquiries as shown by the click activity. The defendant's motion at page 4, the state recognizes that the identity of the user making the inquiry is relevant and that the state intends to rely not only on click activity, but also on other circumstances to connect the defendant to the original knife purchase and subsequent search inquiries for replacement knife or sheath. And this will include the defendant's financial activity. So they have his payments. It was stated in a defendant document before that just because an item was searched on a specific profile and purchased using the credit card by that specific profile does not mean that that's the person that purchased and took possession of said item. And so all that kind of just tells us right here that they are saying that they are showing that this was Bryan Kohberger's profile and his financial activities that are going to be able to show that he purchased this. There's also the click activities, vice, I don't know how to pronounce. Other events such as homicides, a related purchase activity connected only to the defendant. So wait, they're also looking at his searches of the homicides. Now I wonder how that's going to be, relevant, right? Because everybody was searching the homicides. Everybody was looking for it. Everybody was searching for it. I'm sure he was. He's a criminal justice major. So him searching the homicides doesn't usually mean too much suspicion unless he searched the homicides before the bodies were discovered. Click activities such as the homicides. And it also could be a lot of other things that he was going through, like maybe perhaps he is Papa Rogers and he was communicating through social media networks, referencing the crime, et cetera, et cetera. His click activities such as the homicides on the web. I think this is important. This is a little tidbit here of saying something pretty major, in my opinion. Related purchase activity connected to the defendant, testimony from witnesses from the knowledge. And this is the big part. Testimony from witnesses, not one, but witness as with knowledge that the defendant purchased the K-bar knife. And I think that, there's only so many people that would have known that he purchased it. Right now, obviously he may have mentioned it to somebody. Hey, I purchased this knife, and they saw him with the knife around that time, and they can kind of go back in their mind and say, hey, it must have been around this time. But to pinpoint it to 10 days tells me they had some more specific time and information. And the only way it could have been more specific is if these people were, or these witnesses were, users of the same Amazon account and had firsthand knowledge of the purchase and had seen it and were able to go through their orders and see what was ordered and when, so that they can grab these purchases here. So you have these two documents that kind of talk about it. So you have a witness to the K-bar knife purchase. And here we have that they plan on utilizing some of the Kohberger family members as state witnesses. Interesting stuff there. Now, let's go back to this book. You know what I think is interesting? You know, I was thinking out loud and talking it over with a buddy of mine, and we came to an interesting thought, right? Where I had read somewhere, again, I have it somewhere in one of these 300 some odd videos that we've done on Bryan Kohberger and Idaho. And there was I believe there was a report, I want to say it was on News Nation, where they referenced Dr. Ramsland. And Dr. Ramsland is a professor and author, and she teaches at DeSales University. She taught she taught Bryan Kohberger. And I believe she made a statement at one point saying that she wasn't going to talk about Bryan Kohberger. And I think that the only thing that came out of her statements, and this is just something that came out recent, I think if you go back just a couple of videos ago, we talked about it when we were discussing his past. And she mentioned something about him taking a course in violent crimes. And she wouldn't talk about him. She wouldn't bring it up. You know, that was also what was released. And also what happened, what I had seen, was that she had reached out to the Kohberger family. Now, one of the sisters is writing a book. An author has reached out to the Kohberger family. Now, I don't know if she can write about a student of hers, if that's some sort of conflict with the sales or whatever the case may be. And so maybe that's a possibility as to why she could be going through the sister to write this book, allegedly. I mean, this is just my thinking, nothing else, just thinking out loud, just trying to put logic together. All right. And so I wonder how this book is going to be portrayed. I wonder how it's going to work. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that when it comes to this book, does this tell you something? Does this tell you that maybe perhaps she thinks that her, you know, if the rumors are true that it is the sister and that she's writing a book and there's stuff that's possibly gagged, do you think this is something in favor of her brother? Or do you think this is something more in favor of the state? You know, especially since they want to keep it out of the public until after the gag order. I would assume this is probably something more in favor of the state. But you guys let me know. Let me know in the live chat too. Is that something that is something for that you think would be more in favor of, that she's in favor of the state or the defense? Now remember, the Kohberger family did release a statement once, and in that statement they mentioned that they had fully cooperated with law enforcement. So is what it is what it is. Yeah, I think it's the state too, guys. I'm seeing a lot of the state. But again, so this is my connecting the dots. Let's just call this Psychic Daniel. Psychic Daniel is saying that a sister did in fact notice the purchases and did in fact call a tip line, because Howard Bloom did mention that in our interview, he mentioned, and in other interviews, that there, and I think we spoke about it on a video titled "Grand Jurors Speak" or "Grand Jurors Witnesses Come Forward" or something of that nature. Howard Bloom had said something about rumors were that in grand jury that there was a witness from the Kohberger side family that had contacted the tip line. And so it'd be interesting if it ends up being the truth. You know, he did, and I don't know which one it is. I'm assuming it's the one that he stole the phone from. There's another Psychic Daniel prediction. It's going to be the one he stole the phone from. Maybe perhaps there's some, more than that incident that has occurred that she's privileged to, being because she's family members of him that she's aware of, that would make her believe that something maybe nefarious could have happened, or come to that realization. Let's see. I agree it's that sister. Yeah, I think it's that one. ESP Daniel. One of those sisters is a counseling professional. I heard both were in the field. I don't know how true that is. I know one of them was an actress at one point who came out in a movie about a slasher. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. All righty. So they plan on calling the Kohberger family during trial. Not a big surprise for me. I'll tell you that. All right. The next one that we're going to discuss is going to be the state's reply to the defendant's reply to the state's opposition to the motion in limine excluding the IGG evidence. The state will be meeting up with the prosecution and investigation team to identify who will testify about the receipt of a tip on or about December 19th, 2022, and the subsequent actions taken by the investigators in the state and advice counsel and court. It is unclear what the defendant means in the last sentence of his reply, since this is testimony will be sanitized for presentation to the jury to avoid IGG process. It must also not falsely suggest that there was any other evidence or tip that led the state to Mr. Kohberger. There is substantial evidence gathered both prior to the tip and subsequently leading to Mr. Kohberger both being the person reasonable for the November 13, 2022 homicides and burglary. The state will certainly not falsify, produce, or refer to this other evidence, but will rely on all of the evidence at trial to establish the defendant's guilt. Good. All righty. The next one is the state's reply to the defendant's objection to the state's motion in limine of the alibi. Comes down the state of Idaho through the Lake Tahoe County prosecuting attorneys and submits the following reply to the March 17, 2025 defendant's objection to the state's motion in limine alibi. The defendant appears to acknowledge that he does not have any witness, potentially other than himself, to establish where the defendant was at the time of the alleged offense, as required by Idaho code. Partial corroboration does not cover the time alleged in the state's charging documents or any affidavit in support of searching and seizing Mr. Kohberger's personal property. The defendant's objection, page 2, emphasized added. At best, the witness mentioned by the defendant's IRA can only testify generally to his opinion about where the defendant was during the early morning hours of November 13th. I wish they would be more specific about that. You know what I mean? I wish they would say prior to 3 o'clock, right? Prior to 2:45, 2:54 a.m. You know, but it says just during the earlier morning hours. We know for a fact that cellular analysis cannot show where the defendant was at the time of the alleged offense, as required by the applicant statute and court rule, because the defendant's cell phone was turned off during that time. So no more bull crap about, oh man, he must have been out at the park and he lost service and this, that, and the third. His phone was turned off. Now, how do you know that? How do you know that his phone was turned off? Well, fortunately, we live in a day where you can't just pull out the battery, right? In order to turn off the phone, you have to go through a sequence of phone numbers or a sequence of digits or buttons that you must press in order to turn off your phone. You also have to acknowledge it and confirm it. There's a lot of steps that go in between there that are going to be documented on the phone as key swipes, etc. So they know for a fact that the reason why his phone wasn't connected to the towers wasn't because it was out of service, wasn't because of a dark bag, wasn't because his battery died and he didn't realize it until later after the murders. No, none of those things. It was because that That SOB turned it off. He turned it off. I mean, you're adding more and more onto this pile that is showing how much of evidence they have. There's more and more evidence just being shoveled onto this pile of evidence here. You have the purchase of the knife. You have receipts. You have his phone now being turned off. You have pictures of the vehicle, and we've seen where they have blown up the images of the vehicle at the 1112 King Road residence as it's pulling into the area, that it does not have a front license plate. It does not have a sunroof, and it does have a fin at the back end of that Elantra, which is something that the 2011 to 13 Elantras didn't have, I believe. It is something that the 2015 did, just like Bryan Kohberger's. Based on the above and extensive history of repeated attempts to get the defendant to comply with the disclosure requirements, the court should enter an order prohibiting the defendant from presenting any evidence other than the defendant himself, whether by direct or cross-examination, in support of any claimed alibi regarding the specific place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense. Meaning that they only want him to be able to say where he was that night. Nobody else is going to be able to say where he was. Nobody. And the only way they're going to do that is if he testifies. And I think the jury's going to want to hear where he says he was that night. Because it's not like Ann Taylor can go up there and say, oh, he wasn't there. He was over here or over there. They won't be able to do that. They won't be able to say anything. And so the juror is going to have to be sitting there wondering, is there no alibi? They have video of this guy on camera. He can't argue where he was at. So everybody's going to assume, the jury's automatically going to assume that he's the person in all those images. I mean, the only objection that they can say is, oh, there's no license plate or whatever, right? But that's not going to fly. So he's going to have to go up there and say and actually testify, I think, if he has any hope in this case. Yeah, I don't care about how well, I mean, they can go in there and talk about unknown DNA or whatever the case may be. And maybe perhaps they do such an excellent job that it's being portrayed that, hey, something don't seem right or whatever the case may be, right? I don't think it would be enough to sway a jury based on the evidence that we know, much less the evidence we don't know, but based on the evidence that we do know, without him going up there and explaining himself, where he was at, what he was doing. Why is your DNA on an item inside of a house where 4 people were whose lives were taken, and the suspect drives a vehicle matching yours down to the front license plate, right? And at a time when you had your phone off and nobody can say where you were at, and you have no evidence, whether it be from cameras or anything, police cameras, nothing, not a city cam shows you anywhere else. And you have receipts for an item, that knife sheath they found your DNA on. Pretty strong stuff, guys. Pretty strong stuff. But we know now that his phone was off. The last thing I kind of want to talk to you guys about is this document here, and there's quite a bit here, and this is a defense document, so we got to take this with a grain of salt and kind of read between the lines to determine what it is that the state has or what their argument is, right? So this is the defendant's objection to the state's motion to eliminate self-authentication records, right? Now, the reason why I say that we have to take it with a grain of salt is because we have seen where Ann Taylor goes in and says, We have no idea how they got it, found Bryan Kohberger. We have no idea how they got his name or his information. And I thought it was a pretty obvious and easy explanation. I explained it a long time ago. A lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of the pro-burgers didn't believe me. And I was like, hey, that's what Ann Taylor's trying to say. This is what she's trying to say. But, they're the pro-burger dislike for me, regardless of whether I'm speaking just random or just speaking simple facts. They can't agree with me. So regardless of what I say, it's always the complete opposite, right? But I digress. There's here, man, I forgot where I was going with that. Well, anyways, so you have to take what they say. I don't remember now. You have to take what they say with a grain of salt. And let's go through this. So this is the Mr. Kohberger describes the size and complexity of each item for the state request admission with promised certificate as follows. So there's just a couple of things in here. Linda Lane footage. There's a Albertsons in Clarkson, Washington surveillance video. The surveillance video is about 3 gigabytes in size. The file contains multiple views that cover about a 2-hour time block. The state has not provided any specific related to what it intends to rely or use as evidence, nor a certificate that shows the video were made and kept in the course of regular conducted business activity, and if it was regular practice of that business to make a report or record. No certification for this footage establishing the criteria required exists. So there's a camera or surveillance of Bryan Kohberger at the Albertsons in Washington. Obviously, the defense has a problem with it. I wonder why. It's probably going to show him wearing gloves. There's probably some purchases there, maybe of soaps to help wash out certain things like blood, etc. Amazon financial and user records for Bryan Kohberger. Contains an Excel spreadsheet of information with categories for subscription information and order history for Amazon account for Mr. Kohberger and his family members. This also contains Mr. Kohberger's father's account and purchase history and list of purchases for the entire family. Okay. And there's a few of them. And I'm assuming, so right here it says contains subscription club, history and click activity sign-in history for Amazon account for Mr. Kohberger and his entire family. So there's AV398, 243, and 236. So what is that? Mom, dad, sister, maybe perhaps all on one account, on an Amazon account, along with his. Okay, let's see on it. There's Costco surveillance video for November 13th as well. And this one's also in Clarkson, Washington. DeSales student records regarding Bryan Kohberger. This disclosure is thousands of pages of documents that are not organized in any fashion. The disclosure involves information related to Kohberger's calendar, coursework drafts, final drafts, testing emails, and syllabus for class while he was a student at DeSales. I wonder if the class or coursework draft, final draft stuff had to do with his thesis where he spoke on Reddit to ex-cons that had committed violent crimes. Let's see. Mother of Cycle Breaker says, can they forensically find out what he was listening to, if anything, at the time of the selfie? I believe they can. Man, what a crazy, if it's Huey Lewis, if it ends up being Huey Lewis, that would be insane. There's my psychic prediction. We're going to find out it's Huey Lewis that he's listening to. I think it might be Huey Lewis. The sell student records regarding Kohberger. And then next is going to be Dick's Sporting Goods record of sale for Bryan Kohberger. This copy contains a copy of a sales record of June 2022. So this is either right before he moved out to Pullman or right after he moved out to Pullman, because he moved in June of 2022. So interesting. I wonder what he purchased there. Now, here's the one that I think a lot of people are talking about. And this is the one that's the DoorDash records for Xana and Ethan. It says here that AV002265 contains Ethan Chapin's DoorDash records, but does not contain the records for Xana Kernodle. The April 5th, 2023 disclosure is a DoorDash search warrant returns. The warrant returns contain photographs and lists of deliveries to 1122 King Road and a span as far back as 2019, and a spreadsheet communication between the persons ordering food and the DoorDasher. The state has not specified which of these records it intends to use at trial. I mean, it depends, right? Like, I mean, the only thing you're really going to use from the DoorDasher is that did they have a history of ordering this? And at the end of the day, I think they're probably just going to talk to the DoorDasher because they were in the area during the time of the murders. Let's see. Early warning records. The disclosure contains certificate but no record with content. Mr. Kohberger does not know what the state intends to rely or admit. Well, obviously, they're not going to tell you what they're going to say with the documents. Like Ann Taylor, I swear, she just wants everybody to do their work for her. You know, she just wants everybody to lay everything out, you know, real pretty and say, this is how we're going to try the case. You know, this is what we're going to ask. You know, here's a document with a list of pre-asked questions that we're going to ask you guys. It's insane. And I'll be answering some questions here in a little bit, guys. I'll be answering some questions. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. We're almost to 43,000. Let's get to 43,000, guys. Let's get to 43,000 subscribers. I'd really, truly appreciate it. Hit the sub, share the content, and we appreciate that. All right. ENS Services, 1300 Johnson Avenue, Pullman, Washington. Surveillance video for number 13. The disclosure contains 2 dates and surveillance, each with 125 entries. I wonder what other date they have on there outside of November 13, 2022. And why not add that into here? Like, you know, this date and this other date. What do they have? What other date could this be? You know, we do know that he goes back out there to that area a little bit later on in the day, right? After he leaves Clarkston, Washington, he goes back up to Johnson, Washington. And while he was there, he turns his phone off again, and then he disappears for about 5 hours up back in that area where he was the night, or just a few hours earlier when he immediately left. Floyd's Cannabis Company surveillance video for November 13th. Force Dax Crypto Company financial records for Bryan Kohberger. Shows a purchase history and include the time, but not the date. Wonder what he purchased through crypto.com. Huh. Harbor Freight business and surveillance records. Most of the purchase receipts belong to other people than Mr. Kohberger. But there are some that are Mr. Kohberger, and that's where it comes into play, right? That's what we can attest from this, is that there are receipts from Harbor Freight for Mr. Kohberger. Now, I wonder what he purchased there. Perhaps plastic lining for his car? Anybody think of that one? Joanne Fabrics financial records. This disclosure contains purchase information and a receipt. I wonder what Bryan Kohberger purchased at Joanne's Fabric. Huh. Or maybe this is what he purchased to cover his seats. I don't know. I don't know. Marshall's financial records for Mr. Kohberger. Maybe this contains a pair of vans. And it just says that this disclosure concerns a Marshall's receipt. says AV000350 contains a variety of documents that include police reports, photos, interview, and handwritten notes, consent forms, victimology questionnaires, receipts, copies of messages, and other documents, most which are not related to Mr. Kohberger, but some that obviously are, because it's not all of them. The state has not supplied a certification of any record within this file. So let's go back through that one more time. So what of this is police reports. So we know that he stole a phone. Photos, interview, handwritten notes, consent forms, victimology questionnaires. Are these documents that maybe perhaps that he's created to fill out? Or that, it's interesting. Victimology questionnaires. That stands out to me, guys. Victimology questionnaires. Did he use a victimology questionnaire to help him pick his victims so that way it wouldn't connect back to him? Also, maybe perhaps help him pick his victims to, you pick somebody who's out of a recent relationship like Kaylee was, or she's moving, like a lot of things. I mean, I'll be honest with you, he went straight up to that third floor. Maybe Kaylee was in fact the target based on the fact that she was out of a relationship and maybe the intent. Remember, he spoke with somebody, I think it was a neighbor, who had brought this up, that he had mentioned it being a crime of passion. Maybe that's what he tried to make it look like. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what he's trying to make it look like. Receipts, copies of messages, and other documents which most are not related to Kohberger. AV00861 contains a single-page document listing purchases from multiple businesses. This file contains nothing to identify what it is or who it is about. No certification accompanies the document stating who generated this document or who is related to. State does not provide any specific related to what it intends to rely on. Of course they don't. National service records for November 12th and 13th. The state has provided certification with compliance. And so obviously, if Bryan Kohberger tries to go out there and say that he was stargazing in the cloudy, overcast, freezing night, they're going to bring this up. PNC bank records for Mr. Kohberger. This record contains Mr. Kohberger's account information with transactions from June 2022. Didn't we just see June 2022 a little while ago? What was that on? June 2022. I have this. What was on June 2022? You know what? I'm going to F3 this. Wrong one. June. All right. PNC for June. And let's go to the first one right here. Dick's Sporting Goods for a sale for Bryan Kohberger. June 2022. So you have the receipt and purchase here of something from Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, whatever he purchased from Dick's is of great importance, because not only did they get the receipt, but they also got his bank records for that purchase. And so they're really going to utilize whatever that purchase was. Now, I think that there could be some elements of a kill kit. That's what my best guess is going to be. Evidence of a kill kit. Let's see. And I haven't gone through the rest of them yet. I need to go through them. I have not. Not as far as I had gotten to. Interesting. Petco financial records for Kaylee. About purchases made. Ross financial records. Okay. Target financial records. The disclosure is 51 pages of receipts from Target. The state has not provided certification for these records. Interesting. The disclosure contains an email trail regarding a gift card issued in 2014, A certification is disclosed, but no records are attached. Isn't in 2014 when he supposedly stole his sister's phone? Isn't that around that time? I want to say it was 2014 when he stole his sister's phone and supposedly sold it somewhere. Maybe perhaps he got a gift card. Maybe he did. I don't know. Interesting to go all the way back to a gift card issued in 2014. The disclosure is the same single page disclosure listed for Ross at number 39. The disclosure contains a letter from Agent Douglas stating that they are providing the records for DM and BF from Target. So is this Dylan and Bethany's? I don't know. I got to read this. I got to go through it and read it. I didn't get the opportunity or the chance to, but we have also the TikTok information for Xana, which is a history including use, messaging, and videos. T-Mobile phone records. Under Armour transaction for Bryan Kohberger. Oh, that's interesting. I'm glad I didn't get off of this. Under Armour transaction records. This disclosure contains a letter responding to a record request of a record of a single purchase of Mr. Kohberger made in Pennsylvania on June 24, 2022. Hey, I wonder if this transaction was made at Dick's Sporting Goods. Man, we're connecting some dots here. The state has not provided blah, 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 blah. Of course they haven't. So you have a Dick's Sporting Goods purchase in 2022, in June of 2022. And then you have bank records for a purchase in June of 2022. And now you have an Under Armour transaction records for Bryan Kohberger, a record of a single purchase Mr. Kohberger made in Pennsylvania in June of 2022. Interesting. I wonder if he ordered it then, whatever this was, whatever this Under Armour item was. My assumption is that mask. Oh gosh, let me see if I can find what this looks like, and I'll pull it up real quick. Under Armour. Now this is another Daniel Psychic. I'm gonna say I can't pronounce these. They're a what are these? Where am I at? Oh, there I am. All right. So one of these things, as you can see, that guy even looks kind of like Bryan Kohberger right here. Under Armour, heat gear, tactical. I can't pronounce it, but they're. This is what I believe he purchased. And this is what I believe Dylan saw is only an eyebrow. This would prevent things like hair and if he were to cough and stuff like that from coming out of his mouth. Baklava? I think so. Does this give Tim gives a good comment here? Does this give Dylan some credibility? I think it would. balaclava. Thank you, Beth. Moisture wicking clothes from Under Armour, perhaps to prevent moisture from leaving DNA. That's true. A balaclava. I always say there. Balaclava. It's ninja looking. Good job. There we go. That's what we're going to call this. Ninja looking. That's definitely what it is. For sure. For sure. But, just kind of putting all these puzzle pieces together, I would say that this is starting to look like maybe perhaps what he purchased. U.S. Chef Store, Clarkston, Washington. Disclosure contains a surveillance video lasting approximately 25 minutes. Verizon phone records for JD. I don't know, what did I say? They're going to try to, like I said, this is Psychic Daniel. They're going to try to utilize him, and they're really going to go after him there. Walmart surveillance and financial transaction records for Bryan Kohberger. This disclosure contains a purchase history for Mr. Kohberger. This disclosure is one of several containing surveillance videos from Walmart, and in particular folder, there are multiple camera and surveillance videos. They would not open and were provided in a converted format. Not every video from this folder was provided in converted format. The state has provided specifics, blah, blah, blah. I heard, now this is just what I heard. I heard that he purchased the jumpsuit, right? A jumpsuit from a Walmart or something of that nature from Walmart just a couple of days before the murders. This might be it. They got video of him when he changed his license plates to Washington from Pennsylvania. They got the documents from him. Washington Trust Bank records from Mr. Kohberger. This disclosure contains Washington Trust Bank records for Kohberger. There is an Excel spreadsheet of transactions and a PDG document of images of Mr. Kohberger in his car at the ATM on the morning of November 13, 2022. Interesting. They have him on some sort of PDG documents of images. Let's see. Anything? Winco financial records for Kohberger. Now, that's the place where he got stopped and there was a stalking incident and perhaps maybe even a place where they I think there could be something here at this Winco. A single page document referenced in page 39 Ross and 42 target above. The disclosure does not contain Mr. Kohberger's financial records relating to Winco. Okay, then what does it have? Winco financial records and video surveillance for BF, DM, KG, MM, and XK. Winco food receipts only. And a surveillance video of several cameras from Winco. Washington State University surveillance video for November 13th. Drive. This disclosure contains surveillance from a variety of cameras and multiple separate videos and surveillance footage at WSU. The state has not provided related blah, 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 blah. Parking records. This disclosure contains a huge amount of data covering U of I and WSU parking permits, parking tickets, searches for vehicles, different entities, several spreadsheets, specific files seeking 2011 to 13 Elantras and 2019 and 2022 Nissan Sentras. Remember Howard Bloom? This is another thing that Howard Bloom mentioned, but he mentioned that in the beginning they were looking for in 2019 to 2022 Nissan Sentra. That is something that he stated on the channel during an interview, and it's also, I believe, in his book, When the Night Comes Falling. And so another thing that he's being somewhat vindicated on when it comes to him telling the truth as far as certain aspects of this case. And, you know, what he knows is that FBI may have gotten some information that Bryan Kohberger was their guy before December 19th. Well, we find out that there's the possibility there that one of Bryan Kohberger's family members may have contacted FBI through a tip line around December 13th through December 16th to notify them that her father, Michael Kohberger, had traveled to Pullman, Washington to travel back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania in Bryan Kohberger's 2015 Elantra. And that he had purchased the K-bar knife around the times of the murder, or around, he was looking at, I guess, a replacement K-bar knife for the around the time of the murders. And so another thing that he said that's true, remember, he also said that Bryan Kohberger broke into the chem lab, WSU chem lab. I wonder if we'll see that. Let's see. There are two WSU related folders. One contains some of the same information as 37.5 and 394, but also contains additional information. The second WSU related contains spreadsheet for various vehicles queried through traffic tickets. The state is not providing any specifics, obviously. Would they? Let's see. It says the state is seeking to broad authority to provide in the future certification of records listed above. The records are extensive and they contain several terabytes of video and thousands of pages. The state has obtained these records in a variety of ways and came through police work, doing video canvassing. Other came from with search warrant services, and many came through federal grand jury subpoena. Mr. Kohberger provided as an exhibit a copy of the federal grand jury subpoena. He was provided inadvertently. He sought all grand jury subpoenas for discovery and motion to compel. He has not provided copies other than his inadvertently produced copy of interest and other supportive objection to the state's motion to the records. Blah, blah, blah. And that's the end of that. Oof. All right. So now we can get into some of y'all's questions and things of that nature. I'm going to go and check first to see if anybody sent any super chats or those type of things, because we'll answer those first and always. So we have 49er Girl being a member for 19 months. Thank you so much. We have a Steelers fan coming in with a 99-cent super sticker. Thank you so much. Nobody can call you a freeloader today. And Natalie James comes in with a $9.99. Why do people portray BK as so intelligent? He was sloppy. Well, I think it's just because he was a PhD student. He was one of two that was recommended by his professor, although his professor, who did do the recommendation, did acknowledge that she didn't really know Mr. Kohberger and that her interactions with him were via online classes. So go figure, right? I mean, the one place where he seemed to have excelled was during the time of COVID when online classes were a thing. That doesn't mean that all of his classes were online. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but majority were throughout that time frame, as were majority of everybody else that was living in that time. All right, so let me see if I can answer some questions, put a couple of stars. Can they forensically find out what he was listening to, if anything, at the time of the selfie? I think I answered that one. I hope so. I do. I think it may be a Huey Lewis song. AT is probably stalling because she is probably writing a book too. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the Kohbergers, like the Kohbergers, but I'm sorry, man. Some of these I can't. I got to move this over to the bigger screen so I can read this. All right, there we go. Ann Taylor may be lining the pockets of the Kohberger's content creators and the comments to sway public opinion. Kind of like a page out of the Karen Reed book. Supposedly, there's theories and rumors out there that's going on as well. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't put it past anybody. I mean, to be honest with you, I've seen some pretty disgraceful stuff out of some defense attorneys, recently. Not just in one case, more than one case, more than two cases, to be honest with you. I just think maybe we're coming to that day and age where anything goes, I guess, regardless, just anything to win. We have Miss O coming in with a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right. Let's see. Put a couple of stars. If you have a couple questions for me, I'll read those for you. That's crazy. His traffic stop was outside Winco. What was he doing? Following the girls. Yeah, that's possible. I think that he was surveilling. I think that he was making observations, so to speak. I think so. Let's see. Put a couple questions or a couple of stars, and then I can answer them for you. The facts are his car has not been proven to be the car, nor is there any proof of him in that house. I'm on defense. I don't have to prove anything. You have to prove that he did it. No, I agree with you. You definitely do. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, yes, you can look at one thing and say, hey, you can't prove it was his car. You can't say that there's no front license plate. There's, that could have been a number of cars. You don't see a license plate. But it's the totality of the evidence, right? You have the purchase of a knife and K-bar knife and sheath that are subsequently missing, right? They were used. The knife sheath is found under the body of a victim with his DNA attached to it. The suspect in the area drives a vehicle that matches his, down to the front license plate missing, and has his DNA on his person, which is weird too. You have these odd purchases, the fact that his phone was off during the night. I mean, it's everything that goes into it. You can't go into a problem and say, 10 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5 equals 30 if all you're looking is 10 and 5, right? Which is kind of like what you're saying here, right? The car doesn't prove it was him. There's nothing that proves he was in the house, even though his DNA is in the house. I mean, those are only two aspects of a number of things that go against Bryan Kohberger. Just like I said, only two components of the math problem I mentioned, 10 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5. And obviously, I mean, and this is kind of like what my argument is with most Kohbergers is that I will say 10 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5 is 30, and a Kohberger will come in saying no, because 10 plus 5 is 15, and they don't factor in the other 10 and the 5. You're not factoring the other facts of the case that make the fact that he's, driving, or the fact that there is a car that matches his with a person that matches vaguely his description, who also has his knife sheath with his DNA on it. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy talk to think that guy had something to do with it, I guess. I'm being sarcastic. I think the case put things together, verified the knife purchase, and sent Dad out there to drive home with him and see what was up. It's quite possible. Quite possible. I'm amazed that people still claim there's no way. Dude, yeah, I agree. I agree. Grand jury inadvertently, you pry purposefully into grand jury. That might be a big no. That's a good point, Tim. Inadvertently looked into the grand jury and looked into grand jury witnesses, or whatever the case may be. That is an excellent point. What do y'all think about that victimology questionnaire that they were looking at that he may have been involved in? I think there's something there. Do you think Bryan will ever take a plea deal, no matter how bad it looks for him? No, because I think in his eyes, he probably sees that he's winning this. You know what I'm saying? He probably has kind of like the social cues that he can't pick up on, right? Like if somebody's not into him or whatever. This is what the defense claims, that he can't figure that out. He probably can't figure out that that he's losing the crap out of this argument. Let's see. Thou shalt not kill true crime. Daniel, time for you to come talk to me face to face. Is that a threat, sir? I don't think you'd want to talk to me like that. I don't take kind of threats. You'll end up not liking it. I'll tell you that. Oh, let's see. The questionnaire he submitted for people that did crimes, asking how they felt during it. Yeah. Well, that's not a victimology questionnaire. That was a questionnaire asking about specifics, like for instance, how'd you feel during a crime? He was referring to criminals and how they chose their victims. I think maybe the only thing close to a victimology on that. How they got caught, their feelings during during the crime, their emotions, et cetera, et cetera. So there was quite a bit of stuff that was in there. Let's see. AT showing her I mean, when you're tricking yourself, when you're inadvertently agreeing with the state as well. Yeah, I mean that's when you know you're just throwing up stuff at a wall and hoping something sticks. Do you think Bryan would ever take a plea deal, no matter how bad it looks? Where you got to that one? No, I don't think so. But if that was the only way, he could. Yeah, my email is in the description. Thank you for that, Sirius. Like this guy, like, oh, I'm gonna threaten him, and he's gonna stop talking about Bryan Kohberger being guilty. Oh man, I think this is one of those guys that I was talking about that thinks Bryan Kohberger is gonna walk out of the courtroom and into his bedroom, and they're gonna spend all the millions of dollars together after he wins, and sues everybody that was talking so much crap about Bryan Kohberger that was obviously lying. They were obviously lying, and Bryan Kohberger is going to be acquitted. He's going to be earned millions of dollars, walk out of the courtroom into his bedroom, whisper sweet nothings into his ear, and tell him how he was innocent and how somebody framed him. And then the two of them are going to go on this correspondence together to try to find the real killers, not to just this crime, but to all crimes. And they're going to join Casey Anthony in this trio of true crime solvers. Get out of here, man. Heck out of here. We got time for your crap. Steven comes in with $20 saying, what is your opinion of what is written on the note of Kohberger to his dad, taking his evidence from his parents' house in PA? Also, Russell Wilson signed with the Giants. Mason starts. I have under good authority, and I do cover the Pittsburgh Steelers professionally as well, for FFSN. If you guys are interested in my Steelers talk, go look up Fans First Sports Network, Steel Current Network. I'm also part of State of the Steelers. I have reported that it is going to be Aaron Rodgers that will be starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers as long as there's no injuries coming week one. I'm fairly positive he's going to be signing relatively soon. I would say within the next 7 days or so. But does Mason start? If this prolongs and he doesn't sign now, I can see where Mason can get an opportunity to go show what he has. And when you have weapons like the Steelers do on the outside, I can see him making an argument for that. Thank you for your super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. Totally, the circumstances what matters the most when deciding what's beyond reasonable doubt. Doubts and guilt can coexist in our legal system. I like this. Artworks goes, I went back the other day and watched American Psycho. Patrick Bateman wearing headphones reminded me of BK. Patrick Bateman was 27 years old when that happened. Or not when it happened, when in the movie, he was 27 years old. For those that haven't seen American Psycho is a Christian Bale movie where he portrays a guy named Patrick Bateman, who is a Wall Street tycoon type of guy or whatnot, and very successful. And he is a psychopath. He's a serial killer. And he can't determine what is real, what is fake. He has illusions of grandeur. He has a problem, and he talks about how he has no emotions, no feelings, and those type of things. And what I had noticed is in that movie, he says, I'm 27 years old. When this murder occurred, or these murders occurred, Bryan Kohberger was 27 years old. His birthday was coming up on November 22nd, which just so happens to be the same numbers, 1122 is the address there. You look at that picture, and this is why I say I wonder if it's Huey Lewis, because Huey Lewis was a musician in that movie, American Psycho. They played his music quite a bit. I mean, that's what he was listening to after he had committed, or during the times he was committing his murders. In the movie, he talked about other serial killers like Ed Gein and Ted Bundy, and how, it appeared that, at least in the movie, that Patrick Bateman had some sort of, infatuation with serial killers and what they thought and said, because he brought it up on multiple occasions. That picture of Bryan Kohberger, it's his face is pretty like silky smooth, and it looks weird, right? Like super shiny almost. And in American Psycho, in the beginning, when he's saying, how old he is, he talks about his morning regimen and this entire thing that he does with his face, and he has this mask on, and he's peeling it. And when he peels it, this like beauty mask, he's talking about how it's also oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not just not just literally a mask, but also theoretically, or not theoretically, but also figuratively a mask for who he is. That Patrick Bateman, the playboy that he was, or millionaire, or whatever, financial guru, that's just a mask. And that as he was peeling off his beauty mask, he was saying that it's the same thing, that there's no feelings there. And Bryan Kohberger spoke a lot of similarities, right? There's some information that he has put out there. He put, I think it was it wasn't Tap Talk. Maybe it was. There was some other stuff that he had put out about his lack of feelings, how he felt about his dad, how he called him an a-hole, and how everybody was a sack of meat, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it was so similar to what Patrick Bateman was saying. And this was something that was said probably, I think when he was 15 or so. American Psycho was already out. It'd been out. It's a cult classic. A lot of people watched it. I think it came out in 2000 or 2001, one of the two. And so I have a strong suspicion that he saw a lot of himself, not just in that movie, but in a lot of things, whether it be serial killers, these violent ex-cons that he was talking to on Reddit, all these other people, right? I think that there's the possibility that he was finding maybe a sense of understanding, like, hey, these people understand what I'm going through, or I understand what they're going through. I have the same feelings, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that kind of adds to the motive as to why maybe this had occurred. I don't think that's the only reason. I think him losing his job as a TA, everything he had worked for went down the drain. He was never going to be in law enforcement with what was going on at WSU, with him losing his job, is drug addiction in his past, et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of that had to do with probably the motive behind it. And then you also know about the audio that's 50 feet away and doesn't pick up any sounds of somebody who's like raging out on steroids or love drunk or any of those things. It's somebody, you hear voices, you hear a thud, Dylan states that she hears somebody say, "It's okay, I'm here to help." That's probably, so you have Xana going up the stairs, right, with Murphy, meaning that Murphy had to have come down at one point, right, for Dylan to hear Xana, or for Dylan to hear Murphy going up the stairs with who she thought was Kaylee, and then for that person to yell and turn around and run down and saying someone's here, and then also to hear that the dog is barking at 417 at the same time you hear you hear the thud and all that other stuff. That tells you that the back sliding glass door was left open, and that obviously Murphy had to have ran down to get outside, to go outside and bark. Is it possible that he came down the stairs and she confronted him and he's like, "It's okay, I'm here to help you. Like, I'm not an intruder. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, she heard somebody, she thought, and that was that sense of like, hey, don't freak out. I'm here to help you." And then he attacked her. But yeah, no, great question there, Artworks. Appreciate it too. Let's see. Do you think he has confessed to Ann Taylor? I don't know if he's confessed or not, to be honest with you. I do think that he's not said a lot of stuff to her, unless she's flat out lying. But when they talked about his alibi and they talked about where he was, she mentioned that Bryan Kohberger, his alibi isn't going to say where he was at a specific date or time, as far as location or anything like that. And that in a document she writes that, and also in court, that's all she knows. That if there was more, and it was kind of a little bit of a back and forth when she said it in court, because the defense was asking for motion to compel on certain things, and Bill Thompson had made a statement, something to the effect like, "Hey, that's all we have. If we get more, we'll let you know when we get more, but we can't give you what we don't have." And then when the state asked for the alibi, she's like, "Well, that's all I have. I can't give you more than what I don't have," meaning that all she has and all she knows is the fact that Bryan Kohberger was south of Pullman at some time and was driving around, but nowhere on a specific time. And that makes you wonder, like, if Ann Taylor doesn't know where he's at, why is that, right? I mean, if I was, you would assume if there was you're an attorney and your client is innocent, that you're going to want to know where they were at, and you would assume that he would tell you where he was at, so that way you can find some sort of evidence to prove that that's where they were at, to create reasonable doubt, or even just to create reasonable doubt by saying that you were somewhere else. The fact that he hasn't told his attorney where he was tells me that, one, either his attorney doesn't want to know, or two, he doesn't want his attorney to know, or three, both. And there's only a couple of reasons why that would be the case. Yeah, I'll be doing this a couple of times. Does he have access to the internet while in prison? I think so, but I think it's limited. I think it has to do more with like emails and stuff to get back and forth with his attorneys and files and stuff. I think I have seen and heard that. Now, I don't know if he has access to anything else outside of that. I have zero idea, but I do think that he does have at least access to that, the internet, for that. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. Looks like I might have to block a couple more people. All right. Maury comes in with a 99-cent super sticker. Thank you so much, Maury. We appreciate that. I'm frozen. There it goes. I didn't mean to pull that one up, but it did. Do you think KG was the target? I think it's a possibility. I think it was a possibility. Could he have recorded it and could he have listened back? Shirley comes in with a $7.99 super chat. Recorded what? Could he have recorded the incident? Are you talking about Bryan Kohberger recording it and then listening back to the incident? I mean, his phone would have to be on, or you'd have to have at least another device to record. I mean, it's possible, but it sounds like his phone was off during the crime itself. So it'd have to be through another device if he did. Unless you're referring to something else being recorded. Let's see. I'm having some problems here with my StreamYard and my YouTube. I think it's kind of acting up a little bit. I apologize. Also, guys, in the live chat or in the what's shared there is a it's a couple links. One's going to be to my PayPal, one's to my Cash App if you want to donate. The other one is to a book on the Karen Reed trial and case. It's from Kevin from Yellow Cottage Tales. It's a pre-order. It's supposed to be coming out here pretty soon. It's like $9 or some change off of Amazon. It's on Kindle. If you guys are interested in that, please hit that description. Let them know that we sent you too. Let's see. Natalie comes in with another $9.99. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Natalie. Been amazing. Salty mofos. You know it. Another $9.99. Thank you. Let's see. Leave me alone. These guys, they love me. They're just hoping that I talk about them so that they can, get some sort of viewer. Nobody watches them anymore. It's all right. Let's see. Anything left? Patrick Bateman killed mostly blondes too. Kohberger did the same. It's an interesting movie, man. It makes me wonder if he was watching that movie, if that's a movie that maybe perhaps he saw himself in, possibly. I'm just going to scroll all the way down real quick. All right, there we go. And this is going to be a great show. I think it's over for him. I do too. They should be begging for a plea deal soon. Taylor and the other attorneys are milking this for the taxpayer expense. I think that's probably what's going on, man. I do think so. But I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Share the content. Put this out there on the Facebook Messenger, or not, well, Messengers, yeah, but on the Facebook Idaho pages. Let's get the content out there. That way we can get some more of this type of stuff out there. I mean, we want to combat the crazy and the non-sensual or non-logical with logic and common sense. And so like, share, comment, subscribe. Let's get to 43K. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. I'll be back on, I think tomorrow night. I'm coming on with Kelly on Wants the Obsession on her channel. It's going to be just strictly hers. So if you want to catch me there, you tune in. I think it's going to be around the same time that I normally go, about 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. If I'm not there, I'm going to be back on Thursday night here talking about the case and probably a lot more of these documents that are fixing to drop. That's the other prediction I have. By Thursday night, there's going to be a lot of documents. Until next time, guys. Wait a minute. I got one person coming in asking a question. So how was your wound care appointment? I had my last one today, guys. My arm is somewhat completely closed. I can move my hand up now of the way. I know there was a guy in here trying to fight me, like physically. One, I don't fight fair. And two, man, there's a lot of people that had asked for that and then really regretted that afterwards. Well, anyways, So yeah, I got a bandage on my arm right now. Kind of see it here. Kind of see the back part of the scars. You can see the jaw imprint. What do you call it? I got the just a band-aid now, but for the most part it's closed. There's like this very small amount that's open. I just got to work on the on my movements. I have occupational physical therapy now, and I do have, they checked me, something called radial nerve damage that I have to work through, but for the most part I should make a full recovery ish. I mean, I probably won't be as strong as I was in my left hand. Fortunately, I'm right-handed, and so you know, it is what it is. But it looks ugly. You know, here's the other thing too. I'll leave it on this. It looks a lot like that. You guys have seen the scar on that one lady who got bit by Chloe, the dog in the Karen Reed case. There's this pretty gnarly scar on her hand. It looks kind of like triangular. Dude, it looks exactly like that on my arm. Exactly. Which leads me to believe that John O'Keefe's injuries were not from a dog bite. I mean, it was probably, the dog bite injuries that dog left were more similar to the ones that are on my arm than anything like what's on his. And if you guys haven't seen pictures of what's on my arm, Twitter took it down, or X took it down, said it was too gruesome. And trust me, there's been some gruesome stuff that's been on X for X to tell me we're going to restrict your profile unless you take it down. So yeah. Hey, the minds behind true crime with Vonna comes in. Hope to see you all soon. Great show. Thank you, Vonna. We got to get you back on the panel. Great show the other night, and we got to get you back on. Thank you for your support there. Let's see. All right. Well, until next time, guys. Peace out.